Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Just Jen Living My 360-Degree Life. Today, we have a very, very special guest. Her name is R Kovach. Here she is. Rachel. Hey. I was just telling my guests about you. I'd like to welcome you to the show. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to have an awesome conversation about her amazing book, Disharmony, a jigsaw collection of misguided dating. And let's tell you a little bit about Rachel. She is amazing. Right now, she is actually pursuing a doctorate, y'all. A doctorate. Hello.
From Dr. Kovach, soon to be in the house.
Yes, from Liberty University. She has a bachelor's degree from Sacramento State in criminal justice. So watch yourself. And she also has a master's from Brandman. She went into education. I mean, wow. She has an education degree, a master's from Brandman University. And I love this. She is like a voice for the voiceless. So that would mean the homeless, the children, the animals. She just cares about everyone, not just herself. So that's refreshing. And she feels that acts of kindness improves our society. Isn't that beautiful? So help me welcome y'all. Welcome, Rachel, to my platform. Yay!
So happy we're together. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here, Rachel. Before we get started, I'm going to do a little housekeeping. Y'all, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Just Jen Living My 360-Degree Life YouTube channel and Facebook group. The Facebook group is Just Jen Live, because y'all know I'm live, right? You can also follow me on Twitter. It's at Just Jen. Facebook at Just Jen Live, like I said. And also I have an Instagram channel that's Just Jen Live. Woo! Imagine that. And I want you guys to be sure to check the show's description for all the links in today's podcast. So let's get to it with Miss Rachel. She's just waiting. She can't wait. I know you're excited, aren't you, Rachel? Yeah.
I am so thrilled to be talking with you today.
Oh, thank you so much. I can't wait. Okay, so now the first question I'd like to ask you is, hold on a minute. Okay, my first question is, what made you decide to write Disharmony, a jigsaw collection of misguided dating?
So being a young, newer dater, in this, like, I guess newer would be like the newer age where it's all technology based and all these things. I just kept hitting so many losers. Like, I was just like, what? I just could not figure it out. And I was just like, what's going on? And then there was one date I went on. I was living in Hollywood at the time. We met at a bar. Everything seemed like it was going well. I stepped out to the restroom. And when I came back, I kid you not, I wasn't gone more than 3 minutes. And he was swiping. He was swiping for new dates while I was there. And I was like, what the heck? Like, no way. And so quickly I ended it. Like, anything I thought was going to happen clearly wasn't. And so I went home, talked to some girlfriends, and realized, like, it's not just me. Like, I'm not like some like crazy dating ogre. Like, there's no way that could be it. And so then, of course, my organized brain had to go and be like, deep meta-analysis on Rachel and why she's single. And so then I just started really looking at my dating history, honestly, for about a 12-year gap, and being like, hey, this is what I've been doing. This is what's happened. And so, sorry, mom and dad, all true stories. You're just like, oh gosh. And it's you're going through and you're like, okay, man, some things were totally their fault. And then when you're really doing the analysis, you're, oh yeah, that's totally me. My bad. And honest, like therapeutic process by the end to go and look at my dating history really honestly and really hopefully help people realize like, oh, it's not me, or it's not just me. And I think that's the biggest lesson that people need to take away from it is like, it's not just you. I promise you are not some crazy dating ogre that can't do it. Everyone comes with baggage, and that's where Disharmony kind of came from, was my honest truth about myself.
Right. I love that. I mean, if you can't be truthful with yourself, there's just no hope. I mean,
No,
you have
not
to be
at
able
all.
to understand the blind areas or the closed areas in your life to have potential. So I love that. Well, speaking of your book, a little bit more about your book, how did you even come up with that title? It's so intriguing to me.
So super funny story. Being with online dating, you try everything, right? You're like, all right, we're gonna see what's going on. And one of the sites I followed was eHarmony, right? And you're like, all right, I'm gonna try do this. Well, they don't tell you that after a year, if you're not finding love, you got a rejection letter. I mean, like, I'm so sorry, it didn't work out, but resubscribe for another year, right? And I got the giggles so hard when I got that letter in the mail. Like, they don't even send it in the email. They send it to your mailbox as if, like, from Hogwarts, you're like, sorry, loser.
Oh, Rachel, you're no loser. You're a winner.
Loser. But I could not stop laughing. I was just like, you know what? I have to keep it. And so when I was looking at the title for the book and looking at things, that just stuck with me, that hilarious memory. And so I was like, disharmony, right? Like,
Oh,
disharmony, like, because it clearly didn't work for me, but it could work for somebody else.
right. Oh my God. Okay. I love that. I love how you tied that in together. Like, so you took a negative and made it into a positive, because your book is just fantastic and it's so funny. I mean, I'm a married woman of almost 21 years, and I can remember those, being single. And, my favorite chapter was blind date. Thank goodness my blind date with my husband turned out well, but I've had others that wasn't so great. But the book is hilarious. Okay. I was like, wow. And there's so many gems of truth in it too. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Okay, so I have another question for you. Speaking of blind dating, of the many amazing chapters in your book, which one is your favorite and why? Minus blind date, but you go ahead.
So gosh, there were so many, but I think the ones that I just really just in my own personal journey had to be thankful for ghosts, the T chapter. I was one of the lessons that came from the book is that when you're dating, to be successful, you have to date the whole person, right? You can't just date like the one facet that you get for like 3 dates before you hook up. You're like, no, like you need to be like a whole person. And for a big time in my dating history, I was a caregiver for my grandparents. I love them. They were absolutely two of the most important people in my life. And that was such a big part of my heart I wouldn't let people see. And because it just did, I was like shielding them from the world and weirdly enough shielding myself, just wanting to protect that most vulnerable part of me that needed to be strong, especially with their illnesses. Well, then, going through and trying to grieve them and go through that process after they passed from Alzheimer's and cancer, I just, one day you can let it go. One day when you don't expect it, and it's years later, right? It's not going to be right when it happens. You're going to be granted permission in life with God in love to say yes and to really allow that door to be open so you can be more open and accepting and honest. And I know definitely looking back, I lost a great opportunity of relationships because that part of me was so boarded up. There's just no way anything could filter through because it was like a glass barricade. It was just like,
Right.
nope, no way. But that chapter is definitely a favorite. And I know for a lot of family or close friends that know me, they read that chapter like, I see them, I know they're there. I'm like, oh, that's definitely a personal favorite.
Which chapter is that?
That is T. So if you'll notice, the chapters are alphabetical order, right? So if you look, it goes from A to Z, right? My crazy collection, but T is thankful for ghosts.
Thankful for ghosts. Yeah, so that's 21. Yeah, 21. Thankful for ghosts. I forgot to hold up the book, y'all. Don't judge me. Okay. Okay. Yes. Okay. Were any of the chapters like difficult for you to write? If so, which one?
Oh yes. So because it was a very honest truth about myself and my dating history, there were some things that were very easy to write. Some be like, that guy, out of here. But then there were some relationships that I've had where we should never have been together. We should never have been involved. And when you get into that situation where you're just like, ooh, years later, you would be like the mama bear protecting any girl from that situation. Like, no. And then you realize you did it. You're like, oh. Proximity theory was definitely that chapter. That one required a couple months, to be honest with myself about, and a great deal of wine. I'm gonna be real. Wine needed to brave when I couldn't. You know, especially when it's your first love and you think like, oh my gosh, like we're gonna be together forever and blah blah. But then you realize you're just blinded by college and alcohol and really poor impulses. It's just so hard. But then what's worse, and that's I think the point of the chapter, is that it replicates, right? Like one bad relationship and then you want it again, not with him, but you want the same familiarity, you want the closeness, you want to be able to be like right down the street and be like, let's go be together, let's go do this, let's let our lives blend. And then you realize that you fell in love with the comfort of someone there and not them.
Wow.
And you're just like, ooh. And so, going through that and I know for me, that's something I've had to address as currently with my dating, is that like, okay, wait, am I really into you, or is it because you're right here? And being honest, because there's a lot of times where, and then I'm a very prideful personality, so I'm like, oh no, I'm right, this is it, this is me. And then I take a trip for a weekend and I go, ooh, I didn't think about you once. Oops. And you realize it's hard. And I know for men too, it's so much more difficult because they're on such demand, right? They're like, oh, I need to be here, I need to be here. And I don't envy them at all. I feel so bad. I'm like, I'm so sorry. They're navigating it as difficult as it is for women, if not harder.
Why would you say it's harder for men?
Because they also have to deal with the fact that anything that happens, they can be in charge with a crime for. They can be like assaulted or blasted on social media or accused of. And it's just a society we live in. Don't get me wrong, there are bad men out there. There are bad men who don't respect women, and those people just they do not count for what I'm about to say. But for some of the good guys that are really trying hard to find love, and they're awkward and they don't know how to talk to women, and it's post-pandemic and you've been by yourself for 2.5 years, and you go and say something and the women are like, what did you say? And they're like, oh God, I'm gonna stay in my peanut butter for it. No, thank you. Right? It's hard. It is so hard because for them the risk is so much higher. And especially because then you have multiple types of women. You have the women that are like the 1%, I want a committed relationship, I want this, I'm honest. You've got the hussy women that are like putting like all their stuff out on there. No shame the women, but you admit what you need. And then you have the women that have no social skills either. And they're completely like, oh,
Right.
they mean this literally. And then you're like, oh man, I don't know what's going on. So it's hard for everyone, but I definitely do have some sympathy for men right now.
And you know, I'm glad that you said all that, because I think it's good for us to try to understand the opposite sex and their perspectives, and not just think about ourselves. We should, if you're going to be in a relationship with someone, you have to consider other people's feelings and not just your own. So I really like that. Okay, so okay, are you currently dating? You, I thought I heard you say that you were dating someone, that you were dating, but is there a special someone?
So there is no longer a special someone. There's no longer a special someone. I will be honest, dating is hard. It's one of the, especially, you know, and Jen, I'm sure you know this, when you're trying to create this new social media identity and you've got these new things and suddenly you have all this new attention that you've never had before, and you're like, I'm trying to filter everything out. It's hard to see what's real and what's not, and you're just like, oh, I think that this is a real thing, or I think that we're giving the same amount, and you find out that they hit a girlfriend, and you're like, uh-oh. Those are the kind of things that now, even with a book about bad dating, I can still fall into some pitfalls. But it has not left me jaded to love. It'll happen
Right.
some, I have no idea where.
Right. Sometimes it's going to happen. But let me ask you, because I am the worst about this, or I feel like I am, I don't know. But I give great advice. All of my friends can tell you I give really wonderful advice, but I don't always take my own advice. So my question to you, piggybacking on the one previously, and that is, do you take your own advice? Do you listen to yourself?
Okay. So in general, yes. In general, I do take my own advice to a fault, where I'm just like, I'm so right. Why would I listen to anyone else? I'm pretty great. But however, if I am blinded by some gorgeous eyes or stellar forearms or a killer smile, goodbye. And that recently happened. And I'm just like, oh, wait, why would Mr. Sexy Eyes lie to me? Well, he did. And it's okay. We all fall into the pitfalls, but you just sit there and you're like, you know what? It's okay. Breathe, take it in, and move forward. But even when it ended, I couldn't. It was so funny. My sisters, they're super supportive. Are you mad? Are you angry? And the first thing I said, I was like, I'm disappointed in myself that I totally missed my own thing, a whole published book that's out there with advice, and I let myself fall just because it happens. Right. Wish this person the best, and even though it didn't work out, I think that that's a level of maturity that I had to gain, because I remember early in my dating history, it was like, wear your tires / like that was like my impulse, and now I'm just like, you know what, we didn't work out, but I wish you the very best. And so I think taking my own advice in general works, but in love, I do have to remind myself.
Yeah, it's hard. You know, I've been there, done that. I remember just being a young woman and wanting to get married, seeing my friends get married. Oh, when am I going to get married? You know, and you know, I just feel that what God has for you is for you. And when it's your time, it's your time. And so I was 32 when Larry and I got married, and we had Malia 18 months later to the day. So yeah, so we were married August 11, 2001, and we had her February 11, 2003. We got married at 3:30, and we had her at 3:45.
Wow, it was
just meant to be. So, and you know, we didn't have any other children, but we wanted more. It didn't happen. But the thing is, you know, kids are expensive. And I said, I can barely afford the one I have. So, you it's all good. It's all worked out for the best. And I know it's going to work out for the best for you and everyone else that's single wanting a husband, or whatever a partner, whatever it is you want. But you just have to trust God, the universe, whatever you wish to call. I choose to say God. And just living your best life, focus on being a great person, which you are, Rachel. So your time is coming, girl. Your time is coming. Don't forget to invite me to the wedding. And now that I have this little part-time job, I can get 18 flights for free. So I'll just fly on to California for the wedding.
This lesson from the book too is about self-love, because such a huge mistake people make is that when we are dating, we're trying to date for the other person, right? Mm-hmm. You're like, I want to get married, I want a long-term relationship, I want this, and we start sacrificing ourselves, our values, and our dreams for our partner. Mm-hmm. And it's very natural because we kind of want to Noah's Ark it and be like, hey, it's us, two of us, right? Like, we just want this. But that is a huge mistake. The biggest mistake is that you got to love you and all of that, and the right partner will come along. Mm-hmm. And if he didn't, right? If he didn't, or something, for some reason your paths were not meant, that's okay. That's, I think, the biggest lesson. Another favorite chapter from the book is when I talk about my soulmate interruptus theory that I had developed in my early 20s. I had been convinced after a bad run of luck that my soulmate had died in the 9/11 attacks. And that is, I was like completely convinced that, what? Mathematically it happened. I know the type of guys I date, the age range. I'm looking at the roster and I'm like watching the special. I'm like, that's it. He died on 9/11. So I started just building this wall around myself. Like, you know what? He's in heaven. He's gone. Like it was never meant for me, and blah, blah. And I was just, had my little soulmate interruptus theory to be like, you know what? That's why you're single, Rach. He's dead. And just telling myself that this happened. Well, one of my best girlfriends. And think, you mentioned that you're the queen of advice. Same. People always love coming to me. And my friend was going through a hideous breakup, like a very rough one. She's in my apartment in Hollywood. My dog is looking at her like, why are you crying? What's going on? And I'm sitting there just trying to keep her calm. And we had some drinks, and suddenly I just blurted out, I'm like, good thing my guy died. And she looked at me and she's like, what? Just look at me, excuse me? And I said, well, he died at 9/11. She goes, Rachel, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, what do you mean? And she goes, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. No. And she was like backpedaling. And then it's the crisis of like, oh my God, I can't believe you genuinely think this. So of course I get her to bed. I said, there we go. Bad move, Rach. He did not die at 9/11. And so it's like we put up these crazy walls and these explanations for while we're single. And I think the biggest thing is you just have to love yourself through it. And just be like, you know what? You're single because God wants you single right now. He wants you available for whatever opportunities you're supposed to be at. You're supposed to be available to help the barista down the street if their car breaks down. You're supposed to be available to help rescue the dog. You're supposed to be available for X, Y, and Z, so that eventually when you find that person, you help complete their journey. And so
I love that. I've often said that when you go into a marriage, you go in 100% and your spouse is 100%. And you can't depend on someone else to make you happy. You have to make yourself happy, and love yourself. And then just value the time that you have with your partner. But he's not here to of course, your spouse wants you to be happy and they want to enhance you, but you can't just depend on them to be your everything, your sun, your moon, your friend, your this, your that. No, you came into the marriage 100%. So I think people need to remember that you are 100% as you are.
Exactly. And then the worst is if you go in with these expectations that they're going to fix you, you immediately put them on a pedestal that even they can't reach. Even that. Jason Momoa tall man is not going to be able to hit that pedestal for you. It's so self-created in your brain. And so you just have to sit back and be like, wait, we're equal. We're going into this together. And that's the huge correction that we need to make in dating is don't look for your like hero, look for your partner.
Exactly. I have another topic. A question for you. Speaking of that, just being aware and just knowing yourself. Were there any topics that you purposely omitted?
Kind of. I mean, I have a very supportive family. I'm very supportive of.
Yes, I know that. I know
right?
mama.
So fortunate, such a supportive family, but no one wants, no parent wants to know the gritty details of their child's
I want to know.
Right?
I think I want to know, but I really don't.
Yeah, like, I don't. And it's like kind of like, and so it was hard because, of course, when you're in it and you're writing and this is your baby and you're telling your truth, you want to include those details and you want to be like, well, he did this to me, wink, and then blah, blah. But then you're like, oh, what if my nephew reads it? Or what if my goddaughter sees it? And you're just like, and suddenly you have this lens where it's not that you're omitting the truth, but it's something that can be saved for tea time later. Saved for something after. What's already in there was controversial enough. I had enough rumblings from my family to be like, Rachel, you dirty hoe. But it was enough to be like, okay. So it was definitely one of those where I had to definitely curb and be like, okay, I am telling the truth of this experience, but I also am taking a step back and being respectful and keeping in mind who love and know me. Another thing that I was not prepared for at the time when I wrote my book, but it was included somewhat, was a question, the Q chapter about questioning people in your past. When I wrote that, I had been very recently sexually assaulted on the work job. Ugh. It was one of those where you just don't expect it. Like even at the, it sounds so cheesy to be like, I didn't see it coming. But you don't. Right. And when I wrote it, unfortunately, because of my own need to heal and try to feel better, I ended up being very attached to a coworker and being like, oh my God, you're going to fix me. And it was just what we were talking about before. It's like, this bad man did this to me and now I'm going to turn to you. And it was just so unfair. It was like completely unfair to the kid. It was like, not the kid, but like younger than me. I don't ever date younger than I did. It was unfair to him. It was unfair to me. And, I think now I'm so grateful that I'm in a healthier point where I could be like, ooh, that was super bad. I should not have done that. I should have gone to counseling. I should have sought resources. I should have told my boss what happened because I was so terrified of losing my job and instead told a colleague. Like all those that, at the time, you're just so like, especially when something like that happens to you, you're so reactive. Like you're like, how is it going to impact me right now? I have to protect myself. I forever will be grateful to this man who he was just such a good friend. He was such a good support. And I, in my grief and the struggle and the healing, kind of did that pedestal thing where I was just like, oh my God, what was I doing? This guy's here. And thank goodness nothing happened and we were able to part as friends. But it was, I think now, looking back at things that you want to, at the time, I don't think my mind could go there. Now I'm in a better space that we can be open to conversations about dating post-sexual assault. Right. But it's hard. It's definitely hard, especially at that time to be like, oh shoot, like this is real.
Right. I can't imagine. I mean, that would be hard because everyone that's a whole nother podcast, but I can imagine. I mean, Yeah, I can only imagine. And I'm sorry that happened to you because you're such a light. But you know what? That person didn't take your light away because you're still very delightful and beautiful and kind and sweet and thoughtful and smart. So that deed that he did to try to destroy you didn't do it. It didn't work because you're still all that. Okay.
Thank you. And I can honestly say, have not thought about him in many, many years. So I'm very grateful things are better.
So we're not mentioning, let's move on. Okay. Well, here at Just Jen, living my 360-degree life, we are, it's all, this program is all about the things that interest me. Now, I am not dating, I'm not single, but a lot of my friends are. Okay. Well, some of my friends are. And, I just really, diet and exercise after 50. And, I'm also interested in my friends that are dating after 50, and then join me in the whole married life. We all go on cruises and have fun times together. But anyway, I digress. On couples trips, but so I am interested in this. I realize you're still quite young and cute and everything, but what advice could you give to our listeners that are 50 plus? Girls
That's
and guys,
okay.
but mostly girls because I'm a girl. I'm a woman, so yeah.
So
But
for one,
guys too. Go ahead, sorry.
it's so cheeseball what I'm about to say, but age is a number, but it's also a huge array of beautiful experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly. If you have kids, don't hide them. If you have a divorce, don't hide it. We all come with a bunch of things that have hurt us and have done that. And the biggest mistake that I've seen dating older and then also knowing friends that are like post-divorce trying to date again is they want to be that single girl or single guy they were before they got married. They stop a race. Look at me. Remember when I was young? Remember when I did this? That's just the complete wrong way to go about it. Don't hide what you have. Don't hide what you are. And people are going to find you, just like we talked about 100 and 100, you're coming in a recovered 100, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like other marriage or a horrible marriage, when you are ready to date, you are at a recovered reset. And you're hoping to find someone who will honor that and respect that and want to be a part of your world. Don't go so outside of your comfort zone. It scares your kids. Okay. Like, there's so many things, your kids are that little piece of you that God constantly is reminding you to touch back on him. Right. They're always like little insights. And if they're going, hey, mom, who's this? Or, ooh, mom, who's this? Those are completely different ways of asking the same thing.
Right.
And so allow their perspective to come in. And then also for over 50, try everything. You may want to, in your first relationship, your first marriage, or you may have felt like, he never let me do this, or she never let me do that. Don't go crazy and do all the wild stuff, but definitely just know what you want and set that expectation for the next thing.
Awesome. Awesome advice. Thank you. I'd like to know what's next for you. Speaking of the next thing.
So, okay, unfortunately, I am a woman of many jobs and many things. I'm always juggling. So we do have a new book coming out this year. It is my first little bout of fiction. It's called Launch. And so if you've ever,
it's called what?
It's called Launch. Okay.
Okay. Like the book launch.
Now it should be out by mid-year, which will be really exciting. But it's going to be following a woman who needs to recognize the changes she has to make in her life, or the changes will be made for her. Little tease get to find. I'm also, as beautiful Jim mentioned, I am completing my doctorate this year. My dissertation is all about disability rights and empowerment, and building empowerment and advocacy within programs in higher education and in community work services. So that is going to be my academic baby, you can say, is like, here we go, working on that. So we have 2 great pieces of writing coming out this year, and I'm very much looking forward to not only helping the world of love, but also helping the world of disability rights, especially for adults who are trying really hard to break through that. The glass ceiling that exists. Try a cement block ceiling. People with disability. It's so hard. And so it's definitely about providing them the tools to break through. So that is definitely what you can be looking at for me this year.
Yeah, love it. Love it. I can't wait to read that book. Even though I don't care to date anyone, I can date my husband, date my husband. Yeah. But of course I'd be willing to support my Rachel. So, I'm gonna look for that. How can my listeners find you?
Oh my goodness. So you can find me on multiple platforms. You can find me on, the most popular one to find me is on Instagram at R Kovach. You can also find me on my website at rrkovach.com, and on Facebook. So Facebook is generally friends and family, because I can just be me. However, if you find me and you were like, I heard you on Jen's podcast, I'll be like, okay, you're good.
I love it.
So,
I love it. Well, now where can people purchase your books? That's important.
Ooh, this is pretty awesome. Disharmony is available all over the place in paperback, hardcover, and in ebook. Okay, so we have all of those formats. You can buy it through my website at rrkovach.com. You can get it at Barnes and Noble. You can get it at Target, Walmart. The quickest way you're going to get it is through Amazon. And Amazon, you guys know, we all love Amazon, even when we don't want to. You can just go and click and you'll be there right away. It is just the best.
Yes. Well, gosh, that is my last question. That was a question. Okay. All of the information about sweet Rachel Kovach is going to be listed below. Okay. So you guys can follow her and find out more about her and all of what she's up to. It's all exciting news. And finally, before we close, I just want to remind you that that you guys can ask some questions on Thursday. It's going to be Ask Jen Anything. So if you would just, down in the chat somewhere or the comments, some questions you'd like for me to answer. We're just going to kind of shoot the breeze on Thursday. That's what I eventually want to do. Some days we'll do that. I'm still getting it together, y'all, but that's what I want to do. I want to thank you, Rachel, for being here. You are amazing and awesome. And I love your spirit. I love your spunk. I'm so excited about Disharmony. Guys, get the book. It's great. It's very truthful and funny all at the same doggone time. So get the book. And so I bid you adieu, Rachel. Adieu to you.
Thank you.
Bye.
And I'll talk to you. Bye, guys.
Bye. Okay. So, guys, again, I'm glad that you joined me. And please don't forget to check me out on Just Jen Live to see this podcast, other podcasts. You can also visit me on Just Jen Live on Instagram, Facebook at Just Jen. And until then, I'll see you later. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.